Guys, this is another video for my students who are learning to program in C and for all who are interested in learning more about this language. Therefore, over the next few minutes I will introduce you to the concept of subprograms or methods, as you can call it, as you want to call it, while solving 3 exercises. In addition to the concepts related to the subprograms, we will also see the algorithm that allows you to check whether a number is prime or not. Let's see how to work with random numbers, and finally work with menus and manage different options available. So let's go. Programming. A subprogram, also known as a subroutine, procedure, function, method, or routine, it's a reusable block of code that performs a specific task. It's like a mini program within a larger program. To run our codes, I will use GCC or GNU compiler collection. It is an open source compiler. I will use the terminal here in MacBook. It can be used in several languages such as C++, Go, Fortran, or C. In this case, we will use this compiler to transform our C code into machine language that can be executed by the computer. So let's see the first exercise. The first exercise asks to write a function in C that takes a positive integer value as a parameter and returns the value 1 if the value is prime, or if the first number that were inserted is prime, it will returns the value 1, and 0 if it's not a prime. But first of all, we need to see what is a prime number. A prime number is a number that it's only divisible by itself and by 1. So 1 is not a prime, 2 is a prime, 3 is a prime, 4 is not a prime. Okay, so let's go and do our code. First of all, this is a file that already is saved with the extension C, so we can start including our library that we will use. First of all, we will use standard input-output. Okay, so I will put the function main that will return 0 value. So this is the beginning of our code. In this case, we will need another subprogram. In this case, is a function. So a function, it's a subprogram that returns a value in the end. So main is a function. And we will also have procedures. Procedure starts always with void and in the end does not return any value. So in this case, for this exercise, we will need a function. So I will start with integer, because this function will return an integer value. Okay, so I will need to give it a name. So I can call it is prime. Okay, because I'm checking if a number is prime or not. And within the brackets here, in this space, I will need to put the number that I want to check. In this case, it's only a number, so I can declare it in just like this. Okay, this function will receive a value, a number that it will be given by the main function, and it will return one integer value. Okay, so first of all, we will need to check if a number is prime. So if a number is 1, we know that if the number that this number will received here, we know that to be prime, it can only be divisible by 1 and itself. So we will only need to check between 2 and itself. If I want to check, for example, if the number 9 is a prime, I will need to check between 2 and 8. If it is divisible by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, it will not be a prime number. So to do that, I will need a loop a for loop, okay, that will start with 2 and will go to the number before num, before this value, because we will start with 2 and putting this I++, the first time that this loop will be executed, it starts with 2. Second time, the value of I goes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until it gets to the number that gets immediately before the value of num. Okay, so how can we check if a number is divisible? Just doing %e equals to 0. We will, in this form, we are checking the value of the rest when we are dividing a number between a number with another one. We are getting the value of the rest, and if the rest of that division is 0, so we know that the number is divisible. So if it's divisible, we just have to return 0, okay, and saying that the number is not a prime. When we get to the end, so we will only get to this line if none of the numbers are divisible by I, okay? So if none of them are divisible, so we know that that number is a prime number. But before that, we need to check just one number, because we start with 2, but we need to check 1. And what we know about the number 1? We know that the number 1 is not a prime, okay? So if num is equal to 1, okay, we just have to do return 0, okay? So if it's equal to 1, we will return 0, because number 1 is not a prime. And if the num is anything else, we need to check with this loop for. Okay, now we can do a test within main. Okay, let's do a test showing how many between 1 to 10 show a sentence that says that one number is prime or not a prime. Okay, so we'll start into 1, we will go until 10 and I++. Okay, now we just call the function, okay, with the value I. So this function will be called 10 times. The first time with the number 1, second time 2, 3, 4, 5, until we get the value 10. So here, if this value is equal to 1, okay, the value that is returned by this function, it's equal to 1, we know that it's a prime number, okay? Else, we know that it's not a prime number, so we just have to print that sentence. So we can do %d is a prime number and do /n to change line. And this %e, it will be replaced by the value of I. And in the else, we just do the opposite. It's not a prime number. Okay, now we will use our GCC compiler, okay, to check if this is correct or not. So in this case, we are already in the folder where the file methods.c is. So we just have to GCC methods and -o, and now I just call this, or I am using compiler GCC. This is compiling the file methods.c and creating an output that is called methods. Okay. Okay, compiler is done, and now I just have to run the file methods, and it is showing what? 1 is not a prime number, 2 is a prime, 3 is a prime, 4 is not a prime, 5 is a prime. So it's all correct, and the first exercise is done. Let's check the second exercise. write a function in C that generates a random number between two received values. It must return the generated number. So first of all, we need to see how we can generate a random number. To do that, first of all, we will need another library that is called stdlib. I don't know if it's stdlib or stdlib, but you understand me. And we will also need another library that is called time. Okay, now, so I will comment this because it will not be needed. This from the first exercise. Okay, and now we will do the second exercise. And so the function to return a generated number, a random number, it's this one, rand. Okay, so if I do this, okay, and this is an integer value, so I can put just like this. So in this variable called num, I am storing a random number that is generated by this function called rand that is used using this library. So let's check how this works. We need to compile the code again and now run the code. Okay, I just forgot to show the number. Printf %d /n and then num. Okay, so it can generate the number and then show the number, so we can know what was the generated number. Compiling again and then run the code. Okay, we see that there were 10 generated numbers, but running again we saw that he is generating all the numbers over and over again. So why this is happening? Because we are not using the clock of the computer to generate random numbers. So it is always generating the same numbers over and over again. So how can we solve it? We can use a seed. Okay, and now writing this instruction here using a seed to the random number, we are saying to the compiler that we want to generate numbers based on the hours of the computer. Okay, using this we can now compile again the program and then run, and now we can see easily that the numbers are not equal, and so we are truly generating random numbers. Okay, now I want to generate a random number between two other numbers. So we will need, so to generate a random number, first of all we will need a function that will return an integer value. I can call this function generate random number. It will receive two arguments or two parameters. I can call the lower value, the first one, and upper value. Okay, because the number that I want to generate, it will be between the lower and the upper value. So first, now I will need the seed. Okay, and now I will have to return the value. Okay, how can I do this? I need first rand to generate a random number, and this value needs to be between 6, 7, 8, how many, if this is the number 3 and this is number 10, I have to generate a random number between 7 values. Okay, so it will be the division, or the rest of the division between rands and upper minus lower. After that, I will just need to add 1 because we don't have any, we do not want the number 0. After that, I just have to add the lower value, so it can be at the least the lower value to be generated. Okay, now we can call this function. It's an integer, so we will generate a random number between 3 to 10. okay, and the random number that will be returned for the call of this function will be put in this %d and will be shown on the console. So let's compile the program. So methods.c -o methods. Okay, it's compiled, and now let's run. Number 5, 3, 10, 10, 9. Okay, and we can check that the subprogram or the function is working correctly. So now I have to comment this and go to the exercise number 3. In the beginning of the exercise number 3, we will want to write a procedure that prints this menu. This menu in the option 1 needs to calculate the area, option 2 perimeter, option 3 volume of a sphere, and option 0 its exit option. So it is a procedure, so it will not return a value and starts with void. And I will call it show menu. There will be no arguments because the procedure will do all the time the same thing, and it will have some printfs or puts. Okay, I will write puts, and here menu and some asterisks. Okay, second line puts s, one calculating area. Okay, I will write only this 2 3 and okay, and last is this option. Okay, I will put some asterisks here. So option 2 is perimeter. Okay, option 3 is volume. Option 0 is exit. Okay, so this is our menu. If we can, if you want to call this menu, we just have to write this option here. Okay, this instruction here in line 30, and if we test it, okay, compile and test, we are showing our menu. Okay. Now in B, line B, we will have to write a function that receives a string as an input parameter or argument, which represents a sentence to be displayed by the user and returns an integer value that is entered by the user. Okay, this is an example. So our function will be called reads integer. It will receive a string and it will return an integer value. So let's go. Int read integer. It will receive a string, so I can declare a string just like this sentence. Okay. Another way to declare a string, it will be like this. Okay. If you write this way or write this way, it's all the same thing. So I just choose one. Okay, first of all, we will need to show the sentence on the console. Okay, so put s sentence. This put s only works with strings. Okay, if you put a %d inside, it will not work. Now we will have to ask the user for an integer, so we will have to declare an integer value and use the function scanf, and we will store the value that in the integer value that the user entered in the memory address of the value res, and now return res. Okay, so this way we are showing the sentence that is received by this argument and then waiting for the value that the user entered and returning that value. So how can we call this function? Int opt, that means option, for example, and now we have to call the function, and now inside these brackets we just have to put our question. So choose one option. Okay, now this sentence will appear on the console and the scanf will wait for the answer of the user, and the value of this variable will be stored the value that the user wrote in this in that instruction. Okay, so now we have to write three functions: one to calculate the area, another one the perimeter, and the last one the volume. Okay, all of them depends on the radius of the circle, okay, or the sphere in the case of the last one. So float area, and it depends on the radius, so float radius. Okay, this function will calculate the area. Okay, and now to calculate the area, we will need to use a formula. In that formula, the formula to calculate the area will be pi times radius squared. Okay, so we will need to to include another library, okay, that is called math.h. Okay, so we can use some functions, some constants that we will need. So now we have to return this way m underscore pi, we are getting the value of pi. Now we have to multiply to radius squared. Okay, and this function we will it will put the radius squared, radius times radius. Okay, this way we get the area of a circle. Okay, now we do something similar, but just to perimeter. Now to calculate the perimeter, it's 2 times pi times radius. So return 2 times pi times radius. Okay, perimeter is done. So last of all, we need volume. Okay, here volume, it's 4 dividing by 3, multiplying by pi, multiplying by radius times radius times radius. So it's radius elevated to 3. Okay, now we have the three functions to calculate area, perimeter, and volume. Now we have to create a program that shows the menu and the use, depending on their choice, to perform the respective calculation. Okay, so we are showing the menu, we are reading the option, switch OPT. So in case 1, the user chooses the option 1. What we have to do? We have to calculate the area, but to calculate the area we need to know the radius, and the radius is a float number. We do not have any functions to read a double number or a float number. Okay, so we need to do another one. So read float. Okay, another sentence. I will put it in another way. Okay, it's a string. Now we just have to do all of this, but here is a float number, here is a float number. Okay, and it's all done. Okay, now to get the radius, we will need to, I will call it red. Here red equals read float and insert the radius, 2 points. Okay, this way we are asking the user for the radius of that circle, and now after we know the radius, we just have to call the function. Okay, and this way we know the value of the area. Now we just have to print it on the console. So printf, the area is %f/n to change line, and then show the value that is returned by this function. %f, we can put this .2 to just have 2 decimal cases. Okay, and now we are showing the area is the value that is given here is the returned value of this function. Now we just have to case 2, okay, break, and for case 2 we need again the radius, and now we do not want the area, we want the perimeter, and here we just have to call the name of the function perimeter. Okay, all done. Now case 3, it's the volume. To calculate the volume we will also need the radius. Okay, and now the volume is, and here rewrite volume. Okay, and the value returned by this function will be stored here and showed on the console. Last, it's case 0. Case 0, it's exit, so we just have to write the sentence that says, goodbye. Okay, and it goes away. And if the user inserts another thing that is not 0, 1, 2, or 3, we should just ask to show an error, invalid option. Okay. Now we have a problem because this only runs one time. Okay, we show the menu, we read the integer value, we do all of this, but in the end the program will always exit. But we do not want that. We want to repeat the program until the user writes or chooses the option 0. Okay, so how can we do that? We can use a loop. We have 3 loops: for, while, or do while. For, it's when we know the number of times that we want to repeat something. It's not the case here. We can use while or do while. In this case, we will use do while because we don't know how many times we want to repeat, but we know that at least one time this menu will appear. So do while. Okay, this loop will repeat until the option is 0. So while the option is different than 0, this will repeat several times. To do that, we will need to declare the variable here, so it is not declared here, and all of this code goes inside the loop. Okay, it should be well indented. Okay, now do all of this while options different than 0. So now the program, I think it's all done. So let's compile the program and test it. So the menu is appearing. Okay, if I put 5, it will show me invalid option. If I put 1, if I put 2, now it is showing me the area. If I put 2 and put 5, it will show me the perimeter. And 3, I want to calculate the volume. It will show me the volume. And if I choose 0, it says goodbye. So I think with these 3 exercises, the concept of subprograms or subroutines or methods are well shown. If you want, I hope the content in this video was helpful. If you have any questions, just leave it on the comments. Take care and goodbye.